Well, Doddsy, it's that time of year again, FA Youth Cup third round, game against Millwall at Madacey Stadium, and I'm sure it's one of those ones that the boys all really look forward to and have a big sense of anticipation about.
Yeah, it's remarkable. All through the season you've got 4 or 5 players injured or sick, and all of a sudden the Youth Cup comes up and everybody's fit, and they're in really good spirits. They're all very lively and chomping at the bit. So yeah, it's been difficult to select the team, to be fair.
I suppose typically, it's where we name the strongest team as we possibly can for the under-18 age group, and maybe I imagine you'll be trying to select those players who've been playing up with the 23s. A few of them will be involved hopefully with the 18s this week.
Yeah, of course. I think when it's a Youth Cup, I think every team that plays in it, including the big boys, your Chelseas and people like that, put their best team out. So yeah, we're not like no other team. We're going to bring the lads back and go with what we regard as our strongest team, and see where that takes us. It'll be a difficult game against Millwall. As I say, Scotty Fitzgerald always turns a good team out, very well organised, and it'll take some breaking down and beating.
And you mentioned those players who've been playing up with the 23s. Players like Daniel Oda, since the age of 16, he's been involved in that 23 squad. Jack Nolan this season's been breaking in regularly, and people like, well, pretty much the entire. You've probably had about 11 players, I'd say, who have played up. So they've all got experience at that higher age group, haven't they? Yeah,
the policy has changed a little bit at the club, and we're putting players up, which is fantastic. Getting them out of their comfort zones. So bringing those back, again, it's interesting to see how they react when they come back into the younger age group. But I think with the Youth Cup, it's a big event, and they'll all be really up for it. And that experience they've had up at the 23s, I'm sure, will put them in good stead. It's really important to win the Youth Cup games and see where you're at. But I've been in dressing rooms before where you look around the dressing room and you've got beaten in a Youth Cup game, and then you look around, but you actually see 3 or 4 players who've got a really good chance of making your first team. And whatever happens, on Thursday night, the big picture would be to get as many of those players on the pitch with our first team, but also getting results. That would be the biggest thing.
And actually, a lot of first-team footballers, here and elsewhere, they often remember their FA Youth Cup because you only get a couple of cracks at it, really, don't you? And I think everyone has fond memories of what this competition means as well.
Yeah, if a Youth Cup is strictly speaking on age, so if you're an under-16 really talented, you might play 3 years. If you're a really good first year, 2 years, and if sometimes players don't play in the first year, they just have one go at it in the second year. So yeah, it's an unforgiving competition. It's on the night. Sometimes the early rounds around. Remember when we got to the semi-final 3 or 4 years ago? The early rounds were difficult. We played some teams that give us problems. I remember going to penalties against Crewe, and then Liverpool in the quarter-final. We went to penalties again there. So you've got to be prepared a little bit for everything at these events.
Yeah, you touched on it there. I was going to ask you. I'm sure you got fond memories of the FA Youth Cup. Last year was a tough one. We were pretty much drawn as tough as possible with Man City. But across your time as under-18s manager, I think you've had some real adventures as the coach, haven't you? Yeah,
I think we always talk about the Youth Cup being as realistic and as close to making your first team debut. There's a lot of hype around it. The management might be there. The hierarchy of the club, and they're looking at what talent they've got in the business. So yeah, there's a certain amount of pressure. Sometimes it's how they react to that pressure. Tells you a lot about the players as well. But as you said before, some of those boys have been up with the 23s at the next level. So hopefully that gives them that little bit of experience of big games.
And lastly, you mentioned already, Millwall will be a tough opposition. I know they don't play right up in the top tier, but they're performing well at their level at the moment, and I'm sure they'll kind of have that little bit of confidence, which will. You don't want to let them get into their stride too much if you can avoid it. Yeah,
as I say, they're well organised and a really decent team, with boys again coming back from their under 23s, and they have got a record of producing players at their club, which is a good one. So yeah, it will be at full stretch on the night, but we're hoping to overcome that and get a positive result.
Well, best of luck, and we hope to see you in round 4.
Lovely.